work it this time up. So anyway, welcome to another Whiskey Circus. The lockdown carries on. Really excited today to have Simo from the world famous Milroys of Soho. And hopefully he's going to give us a little bit of an insight into his world and go from there. So I'll hand it over to you, Simo, if you want to just give us a little brief introduction to who you are and what you do, and then we'll carry on from there.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Essentially, I'm Simo. I own Milroy's of Soho. It's London's oldest whiskey specialist. So it was started back in 1964 by Jack and Wallace Milroy. It's still in the exact same site that I have today on the top of Greek Street by Soho Square. Now, these guys were basically pre-60s, everything was blend. So these guys were responsible for bringing single malt to London. They were one of the first guys to do it. And they actually used to go up in their vans and convince distilleries, so look, we'll sell your blends, but we want your single malt as well. And they convinced these distilleries to start producing single malt. Back then, there was only about 12 to 15 they were selling, and it obviously increased over a year. They sold it late 90s, got owned by a couple of big corporations, turning into a wine shop. And as much as any of you around this screen here like drinking wine, there's enough wine shops in London. So, you know, Milroy's got me into whiskey in my 20s, so pretty much sold my restaurant, brought Milroy's, made it back independent again, put redid the whiskey shop, put a whiskey bar in there with an ever-changing 300 whiskey list, an underground cocktail bar behind a bookcase door called The Vault. And last year we launched our Spitalfields site in opposite Spitalfields Market, like a huge townhouse with a members club. It's got a cigar terrace and a tasting room and a members bar. Then you've got like a whiskey bar on the ground floor, over 1,200 whiskies on it, and in the basement a cocktail bar called the Proofing Room. So yeah, just basically been drinking whiskey every which day but loose for about 10 years now, and absolutely love it.
Really hard life then.
It's a shit life, but someone's got to do it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're the hero to many of us, I'm sure. But I mean, yeah, the interesting bit there is, like you say, 1964, the bar opened as a whiskey bar in a sense. You know, it's a long time. It's very early in the industry. Yeah,
so of course, you know, back then, you know, I think the first commercially sold single malt was actually in '57. I think it was around about the mid '50s. It was Glenfiddich or Glenlivet, one of the two. And yes, it's not been around that long. You know, obviously we all drink single malt around this room, but you know, it's only been around for about sort of 60 odd years, really being produced on a commercial basis. You know, because back then you can imagine logistics up in Scotland aren't the best. So everyone went to their local shop, you bought your local blend, and blends were just easier to produce on a mass scale. You know, single malts were, you know, relative to blends, a bit annoying to produce because it's such a small amount. I mean, even today, it's only about, I think single malt, in terms of Scotch whiskey, I think single malt only accounts for about 10 to 12% of the productions coming out of Scotland at the moment. So it's still relatively quite small. But of course, back then it was all there. But, you know, it was the Milroy's brothers that saw the gap in the market and were like, this stuff's fantastic by itself. Let's just break it down, give it to the people. And, you know, they've got these, I mean, unfortunately Wallace died, but me and Jack are still in touch. We write letters to each other, which is actually quite nice. And he always tells me, it's made by a bunch of farmers in Scotland. It's a drink for the people, you know, and that's what they were like back in the 60s. Didn't care who you were, where you're from, you know, what you look like. You can just come in, have a glass of whiskey because it's there for the people. And that's what I admired about it. I loved it. And I was like, you know, and that's what I wanted to do when I took over. So just give it back. Anyone that's been to my bar in Soho, you'll know it's just, there's no shirts or anything guys behind a bar or wingback wankers, as I call them. You know, just it's just people having fun and being a community, you know, because whiskey is a conversation. That's what it's all about.
That's it. I mean, I think you've hit it on the nail on the head there, that whiskey is made for the people. It's got that stigma of it being a gentleman's drink and sat in gentleman's club, but it's really not like that, is it? It's for the people. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I don't know why as soon as it come down south in like, you know, the 80s and 90s, it's suddenly was like, oh, this is a posh man's drink. I mean, I was struggling when I got into my sort of whiskey sort of like trail way back in my 20s. You know, I'm a tattooed hipster. You know, I struggled. Bars would not let me in. They were like, no, you've got to wear a shirt, you've got to get in there. And they looked down at me coming in. And I probably knew more than most of the bartenders in there. And it's a bit, it's hard. I was like, I mean, fuck me, if it's like that for me, what's it like for women? You know, what's it like for like, you know, people of colour? What do they experience when they go into bars? And that's why now we've got Katie, who's amazing, she's sort of the manager of my whiskey bar in Soho. She does women's and whiskey nights. It's fantastic. We get women from the industry come in and talk, and it's kind of just bringing it back to just everybody. Why can't we just all have a drink and have a laugh?
But does that not fill you with an extra sense of pride? The fact of you couldn't get into these clubs before, and now you kind of own probably one of the best known whiskey bars in the world.
Yeah, there's obviously a bit of pride that comes to it. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a kind of bit of pride. It's now, these bartenders that work at these bars are all knocking on my door for a job. Our training programs are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Claire will tell you. We don't have menus on the bar. I don't believe in menus.
No.
My whiskey bar, one so has 300 space, 300. The staff have to know every single one. In Spitalfields, it's 1,200. They have to know. Dram House is about 250. So the staff have to drink it, try it, know it, and then just sort of relay that information on, and just stop the whole stigma of like getting in, looking at a menu and going, oh, I recognise that one, rather than going, actually, talk to us. What do you like? What's your palate like? What do you normally eat? What do you normally drink? And we'll find you the right whiskey for you. And once you sort of break down those barriers and just sort of engage with the customer, people really got onto it, and they actually started loving the experience again. And we got a lot of the old customers back to Milroy's.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point, because I do personally think that if you go into a bar these days, there isn't that communication. But if you go into a bar where they know what they're talking about, it gives you more confidence to try and say, this is what I'd like to try. This is what I drink. Can you give me that experience, and let them actually take you on a journey.
Yeah, exactly. That's our job. We're custodians of the industry. Our job is to take you on a journey. It's if you come in, we'll ask you. We tend to say, people look at the back line. There's, over 1,000 whiskies in Spitalfields. Well, I'll ignore that. Just what do you normally drink? If you've had whiskey before, what do you normally like? If you don't drink whiskey, you're a red wine drinker, gin drinker, beer drinker. You like red meat, you're vegetarian, and we sort of gauge your palate. And it's from that we sort of like pick from those, hundreds and hundreds of whiskies. We'll find you free that's really good for you. And then what we do is we teach a thing called palate progression. So over the time you go from one whiskey, and then you sort of develop your palate. So in an evening, you're doing a whole plethora of whiskies, but you're doing them in the right way.
Yeah.
My job is to make sure that you get the most out of your whiskey and you enjoy it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, yeah. I mean, when I work the festival scene, people will come up to you and they'll say, this is what I drink, what have you got like similar to that? And you want to take them on a different direction. Say, well, I appreciate you like that, but let's educate you a little bit more and take you, see where we can actually take you with it. And that's obviously got to be the same for you.
Yeah, never drink the same whiskey twice in the bar. Whiskies. We got them.
I mean, the interesting thing is then, so obviously you started with a restaurant. So
well, I was construction originally. I used to own a construction company. I got my family,
but then bought a restaurant.
Yeah, it was bar. Yeah, I used to do illegal pop-ups in Shoreditch, because why not in your early 20s?
Yeah,
there's not much else to do in East London. And then I went into legitimate and got a restaurant. Realised I know absolutely nothing about food, and my palate is great for whiskey, but I was getting my chefs to make me beans on toast most days. So, I wanted to so obviously I started drinking whiskey then, and that's when Milroy's got me into it. And it was actually
so when did you actually purchase Milroy's then?
5 years ago I brought it. Owned by Gerard Boehms at the time, who are a big wine firm. You guys might have seen their shops around London. It was turning. It wasn't what it was like. Obviously, the bar wasn't there. It was just a shop, and it was just like a wall of wine, and then like a half a wall of whiskey. This is a bit weird for you got London's oldest whiskey specialist outside the front door. Yeah.
So you've kind of turned a shop into a bar shop for people to come in, and that to me is a perfect way of doing it, where it's you've got somewhere you can come in and have a drink, but you can also purchase the whiskey from having that drink.
Yeah, it's always very tough, because when we do tastings, we often tell people, look, whiskey is technically one of the most complex liquids on the planet. It's about 500 different taste profiles to a bottle. I think the closest thing to it is about wine, about 250. So you'll find that if we all have the exact same whiskey on this call, we're all going to get something very, very different. The core flavors might be the same, but So trying to explain to someone, look, this is what I get out of this. This is what I get. This is good. But try it and see what you get.
Yeah.
See what you think about it. You know, I have some people that, you know, that can't taste peat that much. So they you give them the most smokiest whiskies, but they won't get the phenols in there. So they won't taste it. You know, I have some people that don't get heavy esters, so that they don't get those big sherry notes and stuff like that. So you often, people's palate's different, but having the bar is so much easier to go, well, you know, I tell you what, come in, have a couple of samples, have a flight, you know, we'll sort of guide you in the right direction. If you like it, you can buy the bottle.
Yeah. So obviously you've said to us as well that you've gone down like the cocktail route and things like that. So was that a big decision, or was it pretty easy to think that this is the way the industry seems to be going with the cocktail? So
yeah, I mean, my cocktail is, we used to do a lot of cocktails at the restaurant, and it was sort of another passion of mine. And so when I opened up, obviously we had a basement space, and I was like, I'll put a cocktail bar there. I built a bookcase door purely because I'd never actually built one. So I thought, I'd see if I could build a bookcase door. I had to weld up this huge fucking metal frame to do it. And now we've got sort of Chris Tanner, who used to head up Milk and Honey. He's at Portside Parlour. And so the cocktail scene is, the idea was the passion that we take around whiskey, in that it's completely curated. It's completely like our own doing. Like, you know, we sort of engage with the customer, find out. That's what we do with the cocktails downstairs, essentially. You know, so that was what we wanted to take people on. Like, we often found, like 5 years ago, people were just kind of doing gimmick cocktails, and they were like, this drink's amazing, but they'd forget completely about service and atmosphere, which is, we could go to a bar and have the best drink in our life, but if the service and the atmosphere is shit, we'll never go back there again. Likewise, if we go to a bar and have a mediocre drink and the service is amazing and the atmosphere is amazing, we'll go back there every single week.
Yeah.
So that's what we found back then. A lot of cocktail bars did. So I was very big on service and atmosphere in the whiskey bar. I wanted to translate that downstairs as well. And what's happened is we've got this demographic of people upstairs. They've got cocktail drinkers downstairs. Of course, you've got to pass one or the other. So the cocktail drinkers are getting into whiskey and vice versa downstairs. And we're not heavy on whiskey cocktails down there. We do like a whole range of things. But I like to just put that massive standard of service on everything. Because for me, that's one of the key things.
Yeah.
You know, you have the best products in the world, but if you can't sell it right, and you can't give someone a good experience of service, it's pointless.
Exactly. And I think, like you just said, that if you go into a bar and the service is shit, you don't remember the drink. Doesn't matter how good the drink is, you remember the service. So, but the impression I get with your cocktail is it looks very old-fashioned. It's all about ambience. It's all about relaxing. It's all about being in the moment with a drink and with engaging with somebody else. Or
that's it. We do all the hard work on curating and creating this lovely, all original recipe drinks, and we do all the hard work for that. And then we sort of get a selection of 12. Like we do a coconut butter fat washed old-fashioned, you know, and we bought the coconut butter from Holland and Barrett. You know, you're just walking in there. This would be really cool. You know, and we do fantastic. I've got a sort of like a peach and soda with Aberfeldy 12 cocktail. It's beautiful. You know, we actually distill dirt. You know, it actually comes out quite nice, actually. I think, Claire, you've had those before. And so it's kind of like I say, like we curate this big whiskey selection. In Soho, it's 300 whiskies. It's constantly changing. So it's about 500 go through there every month. And it's the same with the cocktails. Like, we'll do all the hard work. So the idea is that when you walk into that bar, you're looked after. You don't have to go in and you don't have to walk into bar, see 300 whiskies and make 300 decisions on whether you have it or don't have it. You know, you should go into bar, feel relaxed and be looked after without like being almost pushed into it, you know? It's like going into your own living room, you know, it should feel like that. And that's also we take that just almost just looking after the customer and just like give them an experience where they walk into the bar, they're just very relaxed, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, what gets me with your bar is, I mean, I'll admit, you know, I've never been, I don't come to London. I try to stay away from London. It's too big for me. It's too busy. But I really feel as though I've been there from what people have told me. You know, the conversations you have with people, it's almost as if you could walk in there and feel as though you're at home. Because
especially if that's the atmosphere we wanted to. Like, I've been into too many bars, and you know, it's really shit to see that, especially for like the women on this call, going to a whiskey bar and just feeling like I've seen them feel a bit uncomfortable in other bars. I'm like, why can you do that? Why can't you go into a bar by yourself, no matter who you are, and feel really comfortable and just feel relaxed so you can enjoy your drink? So that's the way we designed. So my bar on the whiskey bar, the bar's literally about this wide, and it has a step like that. And the idea is that you can almost lean up against it, and you've got your bottle of whiskey and your dram below it. That's what it's designed for.
Yeah.
To give everyone the space in the shop, so you're kind of leaning up against it, talking to people. It's not one of those bars you can sort of like, do that on. And so everything's designed around that. The way you see the whiskies and the way like they're shown, it's all about those tiny little things that you'll never notice, just to make you feel comfortable in there, and just so you can enjoy your experience. Because so many times, I've been bar, like I said earlier in the call, just go down there, someone looking down here because he's got tattoos in a posh bar, and everyone's wearing smoking jackets, and you're like,
But that's obviously the difference where you've bought a bar as a whiskey drinker and a customer, and put that knowledge into the bar to give back to the people, knowing it's not about the bar itself, it's about the people, and that will create the atmosphere.
Yeah, the two most important things, like in my business, it's my staff and customers. Yeah. And it's trying to amalgamate those two together. So, everyone that works for me, they're fantastic. My staff retention rate is something like 95% year on year, because I look after my staff, and in return, the staff look after the customers and they engage. And it's all about doing that. So many times you go into a bar and there's a definite barrier between you and the bar itself. And I want to break that down. So like I said, so I've come from both sides of it. So I wanted to break those down and be like, you're walking in, chatting to your mate behind the bar. That's why the bar's so thin. Yeah. It's if we met each other in the street, not with social distancing.
Yeah, but yeah.
The distance between you and the bartender is like you're talking to your mate outside. Yeah. That's the distance. So you're kind of engaging. There's not a huge bar between you. And so that's what I'm saying, I wanted to make that engagement. So look after your staff, look after your customers, and that's the only thing you need to do. The product is secondary. Once you've got that sorted, the product's easy then.
Yeah. So am I right in thinking, though, it's kind of opposite downstairs in the cocktail lounge, and that where it's not necessarily sitting at a bar, it's sitting at tables and chairs, and you kind of waited on this time?
It's all table service downstairs. Yeah. Then we have just the right amount of floor staff and positioning and the tables in there that you'll always be able to chat to them. And so, we teach guys downstairs. We call it the 30-second bar chat, essentially. Yep. So you're downstairs, the customer, you can have a nice conversation with them, but it's fun, it's lighthearted, but it's very informative at the same time. So you kind of sit there, have that 30-second bar chat. You're like, amazing. And after that, you're like, oh my God, this cocktail is amazing to have one of these. It's making you feel comfortable and having that ease. That's why, the guys in any of the bars, I don't like them wearing shirts and ties. There's no shirts and ties around the bar. Everyone has to be in t-shirts and just casually dressed, just so it feels a bit welcoming, Yeah. All the guys downstairs in the cocktail bar, they're the same. It's t-shirts and jeans, Yeah. It's what they want to wear. And so it's just it's just a bit more engaging. So you're not coming in and you're going like, oh my God, it's a guy in a waistcoat.
Yeah. Sort of listening to you there, it's almost like you get the feeling as though you're coming home. You're coming home, you're having a drink with friends rather than going to a bar. The only difference is you're handing a bit of money over.
Yeah, which is great, obviously, because it's that's what works. But no, it's our job is to give you an experience and make you feel comfortable as soon as you walk in the door. So there's certain incense that has incense downstairs. So as soon as you go from the whiskey bar, because the whiskey bar smells of whiskey, got all lovely, it's great. As soon as you go through the bookcase door, there are incense in certain areas on the staircase and in and around the bar, and it's a certain smell that we use just so you actually feel comfortable. It's almost like soothing effects, It's tiny details that you wouldn't notice, but you suddenly walk into the bar downstairs in the basement in Soho, and you actually feel quite relaxed.
Yeah. So with the one at Soho then, so my impression is that most of this chat so far has been around Soho. So the Spitalfields one, is that set up exactly the same then?
So the Spitalfield site, what I wanted to do is sort of take what we do in Soho and take it to the next level. Because it was getting to the point, pretty much most of the time the bar is absolutely rammed and we can only get about 20 people in there. So I wanted to sort of bring it to a different area of London and sort of expand on sort of our style of service and concept. So that's why we got this townhouse in Spitalfields. And Obviously, we put a cocktail bar in the basement, which is slightly different concept with the drinks, like we do bottled cocktails down there. But then on the ground floor, I wanted to go, right, let's just get our curation, because that's what we're known for. And said, let's curate this insane whiskey selection. And we had 1,200, just over 1,200 whiskies on the bar there. It took us 6 months to curate the list. We tried every single whiskey. Must have tried about 4,500 different whiskies, and we chose on those 1,200. I mean, it was a tough Tuesday afternoon. It was a bit of a but yeah, and then we did that. And then what we did, when we took it upstairs, we wanted to go, right, let's do a members club. But I hate members clubs where you pay just to enter a building. So my whole concept there was, it's called the Dram House. It was basically named after the Milroy brothers when they went around Asia. They had a pop-up called the Dram House. And that's what we named it after. And so I was like, right, cool. Let's take the curation to another level. 250 highly sought after whiskies from sort of very fine and rare down to like sort of your core one, but all incredibly unique. Like I like to think that stuff on the Dram House, like 90% of it, you'd rarely find it on another bar. That's what that is, next level of curation for us is. And of course we have the membership, so you pay like £250 a year, but you get 10 free tastings of that a year, which are normally 25, 35 quid. So that pays for that. Or you can have a premium membership, it's £1,000 a year, but you get your own cage. You get to buy bottles from the shop at shop margin, keep them in your cage and drink them at the bar. Plus you get about 30 tastings a year. So you take the GP difference on a glass plus your tastings, you're in the money a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. I hate I refuse to go to like Soho House or those guys and pay for memberships. £1,000 a year, basically it's just to get access to a building where the cocktails and booze are shit. I'm just like, it's packed. Like, this seems a bit close to me. So, and that's what I want to do with the Dram House. We have the tasting room upstairs, a lovely cigar terrace at the back, which Claire did all the plants for, and a lovely moss wall for the Dram House. That's fantastic.
I love that moss wall.
Very fun, very good project. And yeah, it's kind of just making it nice. And so the tasting room upstairs is designed, to the point where we've got chairs around the outside, but I wanted a big table in the middle. But the table is perfect size, so you can sit there, have a drink, but people can still get round you, sort of thing. And we have a cage in there as well. We have cask samples, so you can try different cask samples and buy a cask if you want.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things, because I know Richard showed us a bottle earlier. So you obviously do your own bottlings as well.
Yeah, so we have our own Milroys. I haven't actually got, they're all on my website actually. So yeah, so
that's the Mac Milroy, yeah.
So what I did, we call them white label, red label stuff. So white label is essentially all the Milroy's brand on it. I haven't got any with me actually. They're all in bars. It's basically all our own brand of whiskey. We buy casks. So part of my business is we buy and sell casks of whiskey to do for ourselves, to other bottlers or to traders. So we have our own brand, which we're launching. The next 4 will come out after COVID. And then we have what's called like red label stuff. So we work with people like Richard, and last one we did 3 casks of Macmira. So we did a champagne cask, PX, and a Cloudberry wine. And we've also got a beer and a bourbon one coming over. And we also do one with Kilhoman every year. I've got a 24-year-old single cask Glenfarclas, but it's all their branding. It's just handpicked, exclusive to us. And we do about 5 or 6 of those a year for various brands. Basically involves us going up to Scotland or wherever they are in the world, getting really drunk in the warehouse and finding our favourite casks and bottling them.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it's who's got the feedback, who hasn't muted? Somebody, right. So, that's one of the interesting things, and I think that's something not enough bars do is having their own product that they've bottled themselves.
Yeah.
As well as the lineup of whiskies that everybody knows, because it gives you that uniqueness as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are any one time over 6 million casks in Scotland. As we all know, the industry, wood's a living, breathing thing. You can get identical casks with new spirit put in one after the other, but they'll taste completely different over time. That's the beauty about whiskey and the aging of it. But so we obviously have access. It's a hard license to get. It's an AWRS and a WALGA, which the HMRC come down. They interviewed me twice. They pulled up a debt I had when I was 16 years old that apparently I hadn't paid off, and it was £16. They go really deep into it, because obviously when you get into that game, you're basically buying and trading, duty, VAT suspended. So they like to keep a tight eye on it. But of course, so we get lovely access, and obviously through the name of Milroy, we get lovely access to a lot of casks in the market. It's a very big part of our business. And that's why, we do our own bottlings, like the Milroy brothers used to back in the day. And I think Joe Burns tries to do it. And then we've sort of brought it back. And, I think I've got a 24-year-old Springbank that we're doing as well, which would be absolutely lovely. We've got an Aberfeldy, a Strathila that we're doing as well. We're just about to release our last cask of Ardmore, which I did a collaboration with the Great Frog, which is, if anyone sees my rings, they do all the rock and roll jewellery in London, basically.
Yeah. So that's something we need to have a chat with you, try and get an English cask in there then.
Yeah. Well, we do, we're chatting, we're looking into it, because obviously the English whiskey go, you guys, and obviously cocktails as well. Like, we're looking into it. English whiskey's come a long way. It's quite nice to see. It was a bit of a lazy product in the 90s, I felt. And now it's having a nice resurgence a little bit.
Yeah, it's certainly starting to catch up with the rest of the world. But so when we look at whiskies, then what are the type of whiskies that float your boat? What are you looking for in a whiskey?
Oh, God, it's always someone asked me the other day how many whiskies I've tried. I've had about 4,500 different whiskies in my life, and that doesn't include car samples and bits and pieces. It's whatever one I'm drinking, to be honest. Yeah. My palate changes. All of you on this call will realise that your palate changes throughout the year. So summer, you like a certain type of whiskey. I like a different type of whiskey in the morning, what I call a breakfast dram. I have my very lovely breakfast drams. I have my evening, I have my after dinner ones. I have my, it's been a shit day at work dram. So I kind of tend not to stick into a certain category. I kind of just listen to my palate and just like trust that. What does that want? I really listen to that. So at the moment, it's a Sunday. I've got a Lacheg 19-year-old that Boutique sent me. So I'm just drinking that at the moment because it's been a long week and it's been bloody hot. So I thought a little bit salty, a little bit smoky is fine.
What was that? The Lacheg?
Yeah, it's the batch 4.
Yeah.
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 And that's it. Hey, you as well.
Yeah, there's a few of them about.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I've got the 19, the 17, and the 23 unpeated.
They're great.
Yeah, I think I'm on the 17 open at the moment, and then the 19's next. But yeah, it's one of those really dirty type drams, isn't it?
Yeah. The 19's exactly like that.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
I'm horrendously hungover, so when I'm hungover, I like a dirty dram, just kind of kickstart me a little bit. It's always good.
Yeah, I mean, so with all the whiskies that you've obviously tried and that you've got in the shop there, what whiskey has actually stood out the most for you? Is there any particular one that you just sort of think to yourself, that's not the McMyra, obviously.
Well, obviously outside of anything with my own name on it, not to talk about. Probably, I remember the whiskey that surprised me the most was it's a Kilhoman Macchia Bay, and I remember hearing about it. It was one of the first new distilleries in 125 years. I was an English fan, went up there to do it. I had my reservations, and I remember going up to the distillery and sort of trying the new spirit, and I was like, this is actually, and it was it was Jim Swan that actually got involved in it, and he was the one that sort of like big on just get your new spirit right. And I remember going up there and trying their new spirit and then their Macchia Bay, and I was like, I was just honestly surprised because it had been a long time, because I've been drinking a lot of older Islers, and it had been a long time since I drunk like a young, fresh Isla. And nowadays, I love my young Keelers and bits and pieces, but it was a sort of like a slap in the face, like, oh my God, young Isla, and it got me back into young Isla. I could go, 74 Ardbeg, which is just when they did their own maltings, just ridiculous. Heavily sherry Port Ellens from the 50s to that, but I think for me, outside of my own brand, that Kilhoman Macchia Bay is honestly one of the, at the time, was one of the bang for buck drams.
But I think that's kind of a perfect answer that you gave, because normally when you ask somebody that, they have to go for that very high end straight away. It's like, oh, this is, and I think the ones that have been honest to themselves, it generally is a core range basic whiskey that you suddenly just think, wow, that's just suddenly.
And it's good to see it's that good. They've not even released their 10-year yet. Because the Macchia Bay is that good. It's so much demand for it. And I was like, kind of, you know, you look at distilleries that force the age statement, they push out really quickly. And I was kind of like, you know what, you have a very young, back when non-age statements were really powering into the market, I was like, this is actually really good liquid. And it's good. Was it 40, 45 pound on the shelf? I mean, I'm a big believer, you only pay for rarity in whiskey, you don't pay for quality. You know, I tell a lot of people, I've had George Grant come in and give me a 56-year-old Glenfarclas, like one of 94 bottles. It worked out about £1,000 dram. He's obviously on the bar, a bit drunk, started pouring out large drams for everybody in the bar. And I just turned around and said, mate, it's lovely, but I prefer the 15. And he went, yeah, me too, to be honest.
But that to me is pretty typical, because I think, especially with Glenfarclas, that the 15 is the essence of the whole range. It's kind of the most raw whiskey that they do, but it's the best one as well for me. Yeah,
it's I love it. I mean, the Grant Distillery, it's beautiful. Their sort of cast program's insane. It's very good. They get some of the best Oloroso casts ever. And I really like going up there. And obviously, the Grant family are absolutely nuts, and they're great to drink with. Although, don't go out with George on any sort of night of the week in London, because that man, if you see George go to Clear Spirits, run a mile, because that man will just drink you under the table. It's just horrendous.
Yeah, but it'll be a fun night getting there, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But so going back to the business anyway, so you've obviously owned it for 5 years. You've decided to open another one, which is, like you say, it's a totally different area, because, you know, my impression of Soho is that there isn't really a normal in Soho. Everything's normal sort of thing.
Weird and wonderful, you know. Yeah. If you are normal, you stand out.
Yeah. You know, and that kind of, you know, my impression of Spitalfields is I could be wrong because I don't know London, but it's kind of like an upmarket area, if that makes sense.
It's kind of like an amalgamation, because if you imagine, like, you've got Spitalfields, Soho's just insane, it's everyone. But Spitalfields, where we are, the market, you basically got like kind of the sort of the edge of the city, and then you've got sort of like a big residential crowd around Brick Lane and Whitechapel. You've also got a big East London sort of cocktail crowd up there as well. And also you've got like a big sort of tourist crowd. It's quite a heritage sort of place. Yeah. It's been there for a very long time. So it was kind of that perfect mix. Like, you know, in Soho, we get the tourist crowd and we get the big whiskey drinking crowd. But, you know, we found that a lot of our customers were coming from out east. And a lot of our customers worked, you know, in and around the city somewhere. So we were like, okay, let's just try and open up here. Just to sort of, we did market research, basically involved me going around getting drunk in various areas around London and just seeing what the market's like, because I didn't want to destroy my own brand. So we didn't go to Mayfair, for example.
Yeah.
Our style of service and brand doesn't work out there. You know, they expect that, you know, poncy, you know, waistcoat, leather jacket, and we're kind of anti that. And so it didn't work there. It wouldn't work in North London, South London, and too far east, it didn't work either. So Spitalfields is kind of like that perfect, like another melting pot for us, for like our customer base and what we wanted to achieve out of that.
And was there anywhere else in the contention then, you know, other than Spitalfields, or was it once you'd kind of got to Spitalfields, it was, yeah, this is the only place?
Yeah, we were looking, there's a few other places, but then you were like, you know, just sort of South Covent Garden around there, but then you're too close to the Soho site anyway, so there's not much point. So yeah, that was kind of, it's almost like a perfect location for us. We'd done our research, looked at the traffic, looked at the volume of people around there, sort of looked at different types of bars, different types of drinkers around there, and it was sort of like that perfect sort of like melting pot for us that we wanted to achieve, which is, it's pretty much the exact same concept as Soho with the addition of the members bar, but it's just a little bit bigger.
Yeah. So I mean, the impression that I get with Soho is it's not somewhere where these retail places come up very often. But if somewhere slightly bigger came up, would you move it, or is it essentially going to stay where it is?
No, it's been there. It's been the exact same site since '64. It's that building is just, if I haven't been there,
so it wouldn't work elsewhere type thing.
I mean, Soho's very tough when stuff comes up, although weirdly enough now, obviously a lot of places are unfortunately coming available. You know, Soho's one of those big community places, and Milroy's been a part of that community for 50 odd years. I would never move that site. That's like our home, you know. You know, Soho's where the heart and liver lives. That's what I always say.
Yeah, no. what I'll do now is I'll just sort of open it up. Does anybody in the group have anything to say? Well, we've got him, or are you all going to stay quiet now? This is where everybody stays quiet because they don't like talking. Go on, Richard.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I was only going to say we were talking about service and everything earlier. I've been coming into Milroy's. Well, I've come in a few times since starting with McNamara because a working relationship. But I was in plenty of times before, and I never really thought about the customer service side being like engineered because it all felt so natural coming in.
Yeah.
So hearing you now, Simo, talk about that was your plan, like to set out. You did that, and so under the radar that you're talking about people feel comfortable coming in. That's exactly what happened, to the point that I didn't even know that I was being made to feel that way. I know you walk in, and often you can walk into places where there might be people behind the bar or a counter, whatever shop or wherever you're going, that will think good customer service is not diverting their attention away from the person that's in front of them that happens to be there already. So someone else can walk in and somebody thinks that, they need just to talk to the person that was already there rather than just say, hello, good afternoon, I'll be with you in a moment. You come into Milroy's and straight away people are like, oh, hiya, how are you doing? And the people that were maybe in a conversation already or something don't feel anything about it because they just feel like it's a friendly vibe and they don't mind that somebody's just said hello to someone else coming in. It's so natural. The people that you have come in, Katie in particular, I think was the person that greeted me 2 or 3 times before starting with McNamara. And everyone does a really good job at it. I just wanted to sort of go back to that point because, I didn't know that it was, your goal. It just happens. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll never notice like the little things that we do, but you'll always notice when you don't get them in other bars. Like in our the shape of the bar is designed in a specific way. The way we greet, talk to people, the questions that we ask you, how we look, how we act. Down to like insanely granular levels. If you're in the cocktail bar, ice is stacked in a certain way in the glass. You'll never notice it, but it's because when you drink it, the ice doesn't touch the top of your lip. A lime wedge has an upside down. It's geeky, horrendously geeky things like that you go into that you'll never notice in any other bar. But you'll notice when you don't get it. Because like you said, you're supposed to come in like Richard. You're not supposed to notice these things. You're just supposed to suddenly walk in and be like, I just feel comfortable.
Yeah. And that's kind of the perfect compliment when somebody comes back and says, I didn't realise it was engineered, because it doesn't feel like that way. So that tells you that it's working perfectly, which obviously you would know anyway, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. We just want people to walk in. I mean, I think Claire actually on this call, I think you're just a regular drinker. You just wanted to come close.
No, do you know what? I was a member of another whiskey club just round the corner to you, which I sort of fell out with a bit due to some obnoxious behaviour. And I was told by, I think it was Jason Vaswami, come down to Milroy's. And I'd never been to Milroy's before. And so I met Jason in there. And I got to say, from the second I walked in, I don't think I left a particular spot on the bar for the next 2 years. It's just, I could go in there Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock for one, and I'll still be there at 8 o'clock in the evening. And I've spoken to people from all around the world who have popped into Milroy's because they know it's probably the best bar in the world to go and drink whiskey. And it is family, whether, whichever side of the bar you're on, it's family. And that's the feeling that you get for it. And I'm not maybe slightly biased, but it's a great place. Love it.
Can we just clear something up there though, Claire? You did go home in between them 2 years.
I have been home, but this to show what it's really like. Obviously, some of you know last year I busted my foot horrendously, and I wasn't able to go out anywhere for about 6-7 months, probably longer. And one of the first places I went back to was Milroy's as a first night out or first afternoon out. And it was Katie and Eddie that are on the bar. I walked in and both of them just stopped, came out, gave me a hug, and just, we cracked on like I hadn't been away for God knows how long. And it was just, they're just brilliant people, brilliant staff, and they do reflect, the Milroy's product brilliantly. So
one of my favourite things I love to hear in my bar at the end of the night is, fuck, I've been here for 6 hours.
Well, it happens every time though. That's the problem.
That's my favourite thing to hear. Is like, fuck, I've been here all afternoon. It's like, that's what I love to hear. It's like,
but I think going back to the whiskey side of it, for me, as at the point a relatively newbie to whiskey, the way Eddie in particular, because he was the main person at the bar when I started going there, was able to guide me through whiskies and knew more about what I would like than I knew myself, just goes to show how good you guys are at knowing your whiskies. And I'm picking that up. I'm getting there. Do you know what I mean? It takes time. It takes practice. But it's, yeah, you spend a lot of money.
I'd like to follow
Right.
on actually from what. So what Claire was saying about guidance. That's another thing I've just realised. Actually, I didn't realise was engineered again. The fact that you don't have menus there, because I've never walked in there once and thought, oh, I wonder what I'm going to have. You're so close to the whiskies that are behind the bar as well that you just can't help but sit there and look.
Yeah.
And when somebody is talking to you and saying, you know, they do ask all of those questions Simo said, and I've just never noticed, because it's just a conversation as soon as you're in there.
What you find is when you get a group of people at the bar, like on the customer side, it's such a relaxed place that we're all talking to each other about what we're drinking. We're sharing the drams that we've bought ourselves. It's just an amazing community in there every single time. So
that's exactly how I've seen it. And Simo was saying he doesn't have any suits behind the bar, but I've been in there where there's been all sorts of people wearing suits and other people that look like they've just jumped straight off a skateboard, you know, as they've walked in the door. Everybody's in there and they're all sitting at the bar and after a dram or two, because the environment you're in, what you said, you're all talking to everyone. I've been in there on my own once or twice and just ended up just having conversations with people down the bar and getting to know them. When I was in there on Wednesday, I went in there to say hello to Simo and ended up just having a conversation with 4 or 5 other people for 5 or 10 minutes.
That's the thing. The one thing every single person pretty much has in common with everybody else that goes into Milroy's, we like whiskey. We automatically have a conversation piece.
Yeah, and that's the only thing you need to qualify to be part of the whiskey community or to be welcomed, is just have an interest in it. That's it. The rest of it, who you are, where you're from, your experience, that, you know, everything else is irrelevant. All you need to do is just have a minor interest and ask a question or something, and that's it. You're off, and you can make friends for life in there.
Exactly.
And that's the interesting part, I think, when we start talking about a bar or a restaurant or any particular thing, that when people start to say it's more of a community than a bar or a restaurant, that is, to me, a massive compliment to you, Simo, on this occasion, that people look at it that way rather than thinking, right, let's go down to Milroy's. They're going to Milroy's because it's like a second home.
Yeah, that's it, and it's everything we want. It's kind of like what I want at the bar, and like, you know, the guys staying here. And thank you for the lovely compliments. And it's, you know, I wanted somewhere you could feel relaxed, and there's no one looks down at everybody. If you've got someone spending £1,000 on a dram or someone spending £5 on a dram, everyone's treated the same, you know, and everyone's looked at equally. And I love that. And it's, you know, you get an eclectic mix of people in it. It's amazing to walk in my bar with like the girls from, like, you know, Madame Jojo in complete drag down the end of the bar, you know, with some old guys that have been drinking whiskey for 40 years, chatting about life in Soho. You know, it's one of those amazing things you can just see, and I love it. And it, like I said, it's creating that community. But everything we do in the bar is to reinforce that, you know.
And just to sort of check, because obviously, like I say, you know, my downfall is I don't come to London very often, so the bar, it's obviously a whiskey bar upstairs, cocktail bar downstairs. Is it basically just whiskies, or do you sell beers and things like that, or is it all whiskies, as in bourbon, world whiskey, and everything like that?
It's predominantly Scotch, but we have whiskey from all over the world, from obviously mostly America, Asia, you know, Europe, Scotland, Irish blend.
Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden.
Do the Swedes make whiskey?
Some of them do, yeah.
You got 1 or 2 on your back shelf there, Rich.
Well, this is one that I got actually from Milroy's when I came in. I think my first actual shift, so working with Matt Meara there. And you said earlier about people coming in and they can try things and then also walk away with a bottle, because you've got both the shop and the bar. There was this and the Herdited, the purple one back there. I tried and yeah, I know that it's my own brand at the time, but I tried them at the bar. I liked them, bought them from you. And, yeah.
I always say, so we have like that Chorlton. So it's so we pride ourselves in our curation. We go out and I didn't sell Macallan for 4 years because I thought the batches were shit. like you've not brought out a decent one.
Well, and has your opinion changed on that?
The 18's got a bit better, so we stock a little bit of that, but and a couple of the older ones. But yeah, to be honest, I didn't stock for years. I stocked Nika over Centauri. I dropped Ardbeg 10 one year, so they're not the batch. It didn't come out right. We go down to horrendously geeky levels.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is completely curated. Like, we'll try everything. So there's a lot of indie bottlers in there, a lot of single casks, obviously good, great core stuff. And we go around, we get samples, we go all over the country trying to find new whiskies. And, every day we're sampling 10, 15 new whiskies that we've been sent. And it goes through a series where, if we really love it, it goes in the shop. If Eddie and Katie love it, it goes on the bar. And that's it. So everything's completely curated through several steps. So it's like the X factor of whiskey in the shop, essentially. And that's why we're so proud of, like you're saying, all the whiskey on the bar. So I designed it where it's all whiskey on the bar with whiskey and a beer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Not that I've got anything against wine drinkers, but what we found was there was just taken. People would come in, order a bottle of wine, and for us it's not the way the bar's set up. The bar's not set up to drink wine. The engagement is, there's not enough engagement when you drink wine in that sort of area. But in whiskey, because you drink short drams, there's a constant engagement with the customer. So that's why we literally, it's just whiskey and a bit.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I think you said earlier that you obviously can't get a lot of people in. I mean, what is kind of the bar capacity? Obviously, that will be done to fire regs as well as everything else, but are we talking about 20, 30 people? I think
regs 20 wives in there. I think you can't move. But the one thing I do love is I remember going in there, it was packed on there was like people like outside the door, like queue to come in. I think Jason, he's a good friend of ours, I said, Jason, do you want some free drams all night? I said, can you just hold the door, please? And just stand by the door. And just because we got too many people in here. And I remember like just a couple of guys in the corner, and they spent about £150 on a glass of whiskey each. But they were just up, leaning against the corner, drinking it.
Yeah.
It said a lot about the atmosphere, that you don't mind, like people that do spend that money, they would much rather go there, spend that money, stand up in the corner and just chat to everybody around them, rather than sit in some big wingback chair, doing this. And I was like, it was kind of like a really nice moment and that's when like you realise that the atmosphere in the 70s is just as important,
Yeah.
And if you can nail that, people will just stay there. And it's great.
I think it's one of those situations where, like you say, you can go into a bar and you can sit in that big sort of chair and relax, like your impression of a gentleman's club. But you probably actually enjoy the whiskey more when you're stood up, maybe cramped, but there's an atmosphere.
Yeah, you're on a bar stool, leaning on a bar stool, and just sit there chatting to everybody else. I mean, don't get me wrong, people like to drink their whiskey in different ways. I've got nothing wrong. If you like to drink a whiskey in a sort of a quiet bar to yourself, absolutely fine. I've had moments in the week where I like doing that. But for me, a lot of our customers, it's that conversation, that community. It's just, you can go in there by yourself and you'll end up chatting to everybody.
Yeah. So one interesting question that has just come in, obviously with the lockdown, have you done anything to diversify, or how has the lockdown affected you as a business?
So is it really noisy where jam, but interested to hear if Milroy's doing anything to diversify whilst bar shuts down when in place. Yeah. So we actually, because we have obviously an e-com trading. Luckily, we were okay because trading as the stock market crashed, whiskey and gold went up. So it was, we did a lot of work over that 3 months in the trade side. And also because we're an independent company, we can diversify quite quickly. So we did our drams to our door. Similar product to what Master Malt do with this drams to house sort of thing. But we sort of did it on like curation of flavor profiles. And it sold out in about 2 weeks, and we've just got our second batch down from Scotland, which is about 2,500 drams. And they're all done by meaty, fruity, waxy, citrusy, light sherry premium. We've got 30 different flights of free that we're doing. Also tastings at home. So Katie, she started doing tastings at home. We did a lot of like Zoom tastings for everybody, and they just flew out the door completely. So yeah, it was very tough for us because obviously, you know, our big thing is service and experience. So trying to get that to people at home was, you know, it was a very tough task, but, you know, we kept it just simple, good, and just concentrated on what we did. And the tastings at home were insanely popular. We were doing about 40 a week. You know, we had to get a couple of people doing the tastings. It was absolutely mad. And obviously the Dramsey door just flew off the shelf. The first lot sold out in about 3 weeks. And it's something we're actually going to carry on in the future as well now. So we're actually going to do sort of like virtual tastings on a regular basis once we open up back normal again. And the Dramsey door, we've actually just done the packaging, redone the packaging, got like a blue wax seal label. We've got like a nice circular box we're getting it into, and it's something we're going to do well. So yeah, we've diversified, it's done well. And you know, luckily we're in quite a good position because we have the shop e-com. So obviously the bars are shut, but we can diversify within the company itself and push more onto that side.